What up, YouTube? This is a portion of my stream where I talk about something that's super, super close to me, and it's how I deal with ADHD, not only when it comes to Twitch streaming, but it comes to my day-to-day life. I found out that I had ADHD when I was 7 years old, and I've been struggling with it ever since. There's been a bunch of different ways that I've both minimized it and took advantage of the advantages that come with ADHD, and that's kind of what we go over on the stream here. It's a little bit different than my regular content. It is what it is. I hope you guys enjoy it. Don't forget to like, subscribe, all that, yada, yada, yada. Here's the video. It's just, I feel like it'd be a healthy talk to have for other people who struggle with ADHD, because I know a lot of people who watch my stream do so because they relate with what I am like, not so much what I say, if that makes sense. Because I know there's a lot of people we don't agree on everything that still watch me because there's something they relate to, and I honestly feel like these type of things might be a good way to have people who have ADHD understand a little bit better, because when, like, still to this day, I'm constantly learning more. Like right now, my brain is I'm thinking about too many things to say, so I can't get anything out. And that's the kind of the crux of this whole thing. All right, how do I zoom in? Okay. This is about to be some content. Well, it's gonna be a good one, a good talk at least. I don't know about content, but we'll see. All right, so this infographic I got from ADHD Alien. I saw a bunch of people on live stream fails talking about ADHD, and I saw some links, and I was going through stuff, and I realized there's a shit ton of people who just don't understand anything about ADHD. There's a lot of people giving advice. There's a lot of people memeing, which is fine, but I find there's just a lot of misunderstanding that people think it's a... People think they can categorize it as simple lack of focus or something where you just get distracted often. And ADHD is more about making who you are as a human different than everybody else. It's not that these individual things aren't things that everybody might do sometimes. It's the fact that doing things like this define who we are as a person. Like, these are the things that make it able for me to continue every day. It's not as much a symptom as it is a fact of life. So while these are like written as symptoms, they're more so just characteristics. I don't really think of them like downfalls or like a negative or like a real big problem anymore, because it just is who I am. Trying to fight against these things is not a positive experience. Understanding them and getting around it for me is the most positive experience. Likewise, a lot of people claim to have it, don't really know what it really is. Yeah, I think it's very easy to think you have ADHD because it's so overdiagnosed, because a lot of doctors out there don't really care about, you know, the kids that they're treating. But at the same time, a lot of people do have ADHD and don't know. So, you know, it can be even more confusing when you're reading something like this and you can attribute a lot of these things to yourself, but you have no reason to believe that you have ADHD. So it starts to like question, do you have a problem? Is this an issue? And like, no, you don't have a problem. Having ADHD isn't the end of the world. And it's not even like, finding out that you do have it is going to help you move forward. But dreading over the fact that you have it is just not a positive way to handle it, because it's not something you're going to change. You can minimize the effects of the ADHD, but you're not going to change who you are as a person, because this is what made you the way you are. You're not a victim of ADHD, but the things that made you who you are intrinsically because you have ADHD. And it's hard to have that separation where it's not like the way you are is why you have ADHD. ADHD is not the reason you are the way you are, basically, is what I was saying. Lifetime depression symptoms here. Everyone has something wrong. They might not know what it is. Whatever anyone is feeling, they don't understand, ask for proper help, reach out for friends, find anyone that can help understand. That's huge. I agree with that completely. And one of the big things with depression is it can lead to ADHD symptoms. If you have chronic depression, a lot of the things that we're going to go over here, you might attribute to yourself, and that's totally fair, because depression, ADHD, and anxiety tend to go hand in hand. Depression can lead to more anxiety, and ADHD can lead to more anxiety, and more depression can lead to ADHD, which can lead to more anxiety. And if you have any of those pre-existing, then they're feeding into one another. And it becomes like each fold on top of that becomes increasingly more difficult to deal with, because it's not for a lack of information on the topics. It's for a lack of depth in time. It's hard to uncover each layer when someone has depression, or they have anxiety, or they have ADHD, or they have all three. You have to do extensive work with your therapists and talk to people who are licensed about this stuff to talk about it and really try to work out the issues there. I don't believe that any type of talk like this or any Twitch stream or YouTube channel is going to do much in terms of help fix any issues, even if they do or don't need fixing, but it can help get you to the point where you decide to go get some help. So now I'm letting my own ADHD take over, and let's get to the fucking point. Came for Excel, staying for the real talk. My man, thank you so much for the follow, by the way. That's why it gets overdiagnosed so much. The symptoms are similar between diagnoses. Yeah, exactly. And even if it gets diagnosed for you, you can still like have all the ADHD symptoms and have less depression symptoms, but the depression is what's causing it, right? So just because you don't have 12 depression symptoms doesn't mean depression isn't the root of all the problems, right? So that's another, like, that goes back to what I said before, where the depth is out of this world, right? It's hard to understand any type of mental illness issue or ADHD or anxiety issue outside of a single person basis. It's hard to make generalizations. It's hard to attribute symptoms to everybody. And it's hard to even say, if you have all these, then you have ADHD. That's definitely not what I'm trying to say. I just saw this graphic when I was scrolling through Reddit this morning, and I thought specifically everything here, except for maybe one or two, attributed to my life, and it'd be a good way to initiate a talk about this. Could be something to talk to your doctor about, herbalist. Yeah, maybe I have both. I think I had this as a child. Now I'm bipolar. Yeah, I'm not here to try even attempt to diagnose anybody. So if you have any thoughts that you may be dealing with anything that we talk about here, I'm happy that we could shed some light on it, and I'm here for you to talk about it with. But I still strongly suggest therapy and talking to the right people close to you, and the doctors or the medical system, to make sure that you can get everything in check by people who have their best interests. I'm just a dude behind a computer screen talking about my own anecdotal experiences and how ADHD has affected my life. So just keep that all in mind. I'm not a doctor. I've been with my wife for almost 16 years, and she is still learning how to understand and deal with ADHD. Yeah, that's because it's part of what makes you use. So when you start, I don't know. For me, it's hard to separate feeling like I'm being controlled by my ADHD and accepting that my ADHD has molded so many different aspects of my life, right? Because those two things can come in hand, but they don't for me, right? It's not like I'm at the control of ADHD. It doesn't tell me what to do. It doesn't choose what I'm going to do, but I have to be aware of it and then work around it. You know what I'm saying? Or work through it in the situation. Like, a lot of these aren't even necessarily problems. They may be listed as issues, but they're not. You can do these things in non-destructive ways. And if that helps me personally get through life, then that's fine. So, all right, let's start with number one. I truly respect you for the way you talk and the topics you're discussing. First-time watcher, but definitely following. Hey, I appreciate that. We get into talks that are way over my head, like, every single day. I try to do my due diligence. Appreciate the follow. I try to do my due diligence to let you guys know that I'm just an idiot talking on the internet. So keep that in mind. But I think it's more important to shed some light about stuff that I am close to, because I don't know, man. It's therapy for me to talk about this more than anything. I am positioning this like I'm doing it to help you guys, but in reality, I'm doing it to help myself as well. So let's start. First one. Playing or chewing on jewelry, hair, or clothing. This right here is absolutely huge. I don't know if any of you guys, when you were younger, used to bite the front of your shirt. But when I was in middle school and in elementary school, the front of my t-shirts were absolutely destroyed because I used to sit in class and chew on the front of my shirt because I was nervous and I was just like freaking out. I wasn't thinking about it. I wasn't thinking like, hey, this is the worst thing in the world. I was just doing it to keep myself relaxed, to try to keep my brain from running off in a different direction. Hey, what up, props do? So that's easily, I can find so many examples of doing stuff like that in my life to try to slow it all down. Each person is an individual. Not everyone has all the same symptoms, but still have ADHD. My mental health in general needs to be discussed way more than it does. There's so many people that are ignorant to the facts about the disorders. Facts. It's really hard to digest too, because a lot of it is like holding up a mirror, and it's important to realize that these aren't negatives. These are just characteristics. That's all. You know what I mean? Just part of, a lot of these are part of who I am, and they don't take away from who I am. They add to it. Changing seating positions frequently. Okay, so this one I do constantly, and I can't say this adds anything to my life outside of the constant feeling of being uncomfortable. And this thing, I think this is one of the things that bleeds into depression. You have this certain feeling inside of you, like you're always jealous of people who can just relax. Like a lot of the times my friends would just be chilling, or other people, my parents would just be chilling, and I would be thinking in my head like, how? But I wouldn't be analyzing it like, wow, it's crazy that they can relax. I would be thinking like, how are they just sitting there not doing anything? There's so much to do. There's so much to experience. There's so much to fucking like think about and talk about, that I couldn't wrap my head around how they could just like turn it off and chill. And that was that's when I had a huge disconnect between the people around me and how I felt. It's when I started noticing that it was like I'm different. Like I'm like the only kid in this class who's fidgeting and like getting up and wants to move, and it's like, why is no one else acting like this? But other people, like, they told me that other people have ADHD, and at this point in my life, I thought that everything that I was going through was what everybody went through. For some reason, that's what I always told myself. Whenever I was going through anything as a kid, I always told myself, I'm not alone with this. Like, this is just what everybody goes through. This is just life. Like that. For some reason, I don't know what instilled that into my life early, but that's always been something that I thought to keep me out of like spiraling out of control, if that makes sense. I'm just like, this is regular. This is no big deal. Like, these are just regular problems that I'm dealing with, and I'll get through it, and I'll get to the other side. Like, it'll all just go away most of the time is what I went to. Like, it'll all be fine in the end. And as you get older, you realize that in the end, things don't end up being fine. Because when you're really young, you have your parents there to make things fine in the end. So when you're fucking freaking out, or you're super nervous, or you're super uncomfortable somewhere, you know that you're still going to get home, right? And then you're going to be able to be relaxed. But as you get older, you have to find home within yourself. There's no longer a home in an environmental sense. You can build your own house 17 miles away from everybody and live alone for 5 years, but it doesn't mean you're home, right? So that's where being a kid with ADHD differs from being an adult, or one of the ways, obviously, not the only way. But yeah, repetitive movements like tapping or touching yourself. I own like over $1,000 worth of fidget spinners. That's all that needs to be said. I own Damascus steel blue tongue fidget spinners. I own titanium anodized fidget spinners. I owned every fancy fidget spinner. I own torque bars. When I'm in there, you know what I'm saying? Do they help? They help tremendously. Fidget spinners, I can attribute directly to the advancements that I made at the dispensary. At the dispensary that I was working at, I went from making like $12 an hour, $13 an hour as a bud tender to making $20+ an hour as a floor supervisor, because I had these fidget spinners to channel my energy. I was also eating healthy. I was going to the gym frequently. I had a good social life. I had like a kind of girlfriend at the time. Like there's a lot of things going well in my life, and I also had a fidget spinner to keep my impulses in check. I was constantly spinning this to the point where both my middle fingers had calluses on them from spinning fidget spinners so much. So you work at a dispensary. Do you use CBD or THC for ADHD at all? THC. I just smoke a lot of weed. I use ADHD as my excuse for it, but in reality, I probably smoke way too much weed to actually use that as my excuse. I could be way smarter about it and way more clinical, but as with ADHD, like we're talking about it, I tend to have an addicting personality, and I've kind of accepted the like lesser of two evils. Like I'm the type of person that can easily get addicted to anything that he really likes, right? And that's a problem. So I have to find things. That's why when you look in my room, I have so many hobbies, or the appearance of having a lot of hobbies. I have different music equipment. I have different camera equipment. I have a bunch of different mics. I have a ton of keyboards. I have all the monitors. I've got a fight stick. I've got a flight stick. I've got different headphones. I've bought golf clubs before. I've gotten into like ultimate frisbee. I bought Lego stuff to get into. I'm just constantly popping from one addictive type of hobby to the other one because I'm searching for that like one thing that can get me excited, because once I finally get excited about something, then I'm firing on all cylinders. I have a flight stick. I played Squadron so much I broke it. Damn. I want to play that game with the fight stick or the flight stick. I only really played Microsoft Flight Simulator. Use both to regulate digestive problems. Yeah, that's another issue. I know I have a gut problem. My stomach hurts all the time. Every time I went to my doctor for it, she like wrote it off, and then eventually she did my blood test, lipids or whatever it's called, and they found out that I'm vitamin D deficient. So, you know, just like every other streamer in the world, I don't get any sunlight. So now I take 10,000 UI of vitamin D every day, and I feel significantly better when I do take it. When I don't take it, I feel like shit. But all right, let's move on. Physically, I use it for back problems, pain relief. Yes, sunlight is super important, especially as we're moving into winter. Yeah, ever since quarantine, I haven't been able to get any social interaction really. Because even before, I'm always like obviously like an introvert type of person, like I'm a Twitch streamer. But I used to go to the gym. I used to go out and do things. I used to supplement interaction whenever I wanted it. It was always available to me, which was nice. I can pop in. I can be social. I can pop out whenever I want. No issue. Now everything's more difficult to get that. You can't just pop in and pop out. You know, you have to be mindful about where you're going and if it's worth it in terms of if you want to get corona and shit. All right. Getting frustrated, having to wait, or wanting others to talk faster. This is a really big problem when I stream with other streamers. Is I tend to talk too much or talk over people who are trying to talk. This is why you don't see me doing a lot of collaborations or anything like that, because typically I'm a one-man show type of deal here, because I'm firing on all cylinders almost the entire time, and when someone interrupts my train of thought, I lose it. Like that's just a unfortunate reality of my life. So I have to work around that, and I realize that me streaming with other people typically isn't the most enjoyable experience, because I'm either locked into the conversation with them and being too overwhelming on their stream, or I'm completely uninvolved with what's going on with the voice chat with them, and I'm just talking my chat, and I'm losing concentration with what's going on. It's like, you know, I feel like I can take care of all these different things that are coming in, like all this different stimulation that's coming in, but then I actually can't. Hello. ADD is nice. I mean, it's a superpower in some ways. We'll talk about the ways that I have personally found ADHD to help me, but that list is way smaller than this list, so we'll keep with this one for now. All right. Movement can appear slow because of hyperactive thoughts. This is something my parents they don't talk shit to me about, but they They give me shit for this all the time because sometimes I will do 4 laps around my kitchen slowly, just thinking. And to them, it looks like a fucking crazy person walking around the kitchen, staring at their phone, or just staring off into space, just figuring out what the hell they want to do. Me, I'm just thinking. I'm just trapped in a thought or like thinking about a bunch of different shit, figuring out what I want to do next, and just getting that out, getting that energy out. And I have to be moving to do so for some reason. And that's what happens. I don't think anything's weird by it, but people always mention this type of thing when they're like, dude, are you like, you spaced out? It's like, nah, I'm just trying to figure out what I want to do. Lose my track of thoughts too if someone stops me from talking for a second. Yeah, that's why streaming is really good for me, because I can just go. I have to interrupt myself. My therapist said the same thing about sunlight. I didn't believe him until I started going out more. It helps for sure. It definitely helps a lot. Constant tugging on or unzipping clothing. Everybody knows the kid who did that all fucking class, and unfortunately that was me, so sorry about that, guys. Getting angry when restricted from moving. This has always been a massive issue with every female relationship that I've been in. I am not much of a cuddler outside of like, what's it called? Foreplay. To be honest, like post-sex cuddling and random cuddling in the middle of the night is just way too hot. Like physically hot for me. I run a very hot temperature. If somebody puts their arm around me or they like mount me while I'm trying to sleep, like just to like grab me and sleep, I just turn into an oven and I start sweating and I'm like, get the fuck off me. This is not comfortable for me. I'm trying to sleep. And I understand that not everybody feels like that, because typically it sounds like people do like cuddling, but outside of, foreplay scenarios, I'm truly not that much of a cuddler. On to the next one. Constant snacking, drinking, or chewing. This doesn't affect me too much, to be honest. I'm not much of a gum chewer. I don't really constantly snack or chew stuff. I just have an issue of getting up and needing to do something every like hour and a half. So typically if I walk by some food or if I walk by some snacks, I'll grab them every time. But if it's not there to catch my eye, it's not really that much of an issue. Ever since I started going to the gym and being more focused on my health, even though I haven't gone since quarantine, I've kind of cut out the excessive snacking. Because I used to be the type of kid that would sit there and eat an entire bag of chips or, just binge eat gushers. Keeping hands busy to help process thoughts, sights, to sounds. So that's fidget spinning. Fidget to prevent interrupting others and appearing anxious or shy. Fidget spinning. This is another attribute that I attribute. This is another thing I attribute to fidget spinning from earlier, and why it helped me so much at work, because I was able to use this while taking in information, listening to other people talk, stopping myself from interrupting people. It stopped me from changing my seating or my positions constantly. I didn't fuck with my hair, or I didn't fuck with my shirt. It stopped me from being destructive with my ADHD things, because a lot of these things right here, unzipping clothing, tugging clothing, playing with your hair and jewelry, changing seating position, repetitive movements, these can all be destructive to the people around you. What isn't destructive is fidget spinning. As long as it's quiet, as long as it's small. I have way smaller ones. I don't really use it that much anymore unless I'm going out somewhere where I know I'm going to be there for a long time. But having the ability to just keep the motor functions going allows me to focus on what people are talking about in the task at hand. So that's that. But I do not recommend spending a lot of money on this stuff, because I super regret it. I had a good job at the dispensary, and every week I was buying a new fidget spinner, and man, it was a very stupid idea. I have some cool fidget spinners, like this one's from Russia, like from a fancy Russian knife company, but it's just not worth it. You can get something small, metal, heavy, that's just gonna do what you need to do. How does one join FPS? Pause. Or you can finish off if you want to stay on task. What do you mean join FPS? Gym is hard to force yourself to do good for you. I love the gym. I just haven't been in 8 months because of Corona, and it's starting to really affect me. All right, fidgeting, I already read that. Sometimes little control over physical strength or volume of voice. This was always a big problem when I was younger. people would be like, why are you yelling? And I'm like, I'm not fucking yelling. I'm just talking. When in reality, I was yelling. I was just really excited about something. So I would just be like the voice would just get higher and higher and higher to the point where I was like so passionate about it, I would end up getting angry at the first opportunity, if that makes sense. Like, I would be so worked in how passionately and excited I am about talking whatever I'm talking about that I'm like on edge. You know? It's like too much energy right there. Too much energy. Clenching muscles repeatedly or cracking knuckles. So, part of the reason why I used to have so many bad headaches is because I used to clench my jaw when I was younger, constantly. When I sleep, when I would get angry, or when I would be in a situation where I couldn't get my ADHD out in any way, and I had to tense up and spend a lot of energy not fidgeting to avoid trouble. These two go hand in hand. Let me zoom out a little bit. These two right here go hand in hand. Really, really bad when I was at school. At work, not too bad because I was always in a position where I could express myself and it would be fine in terms of like my ideas and how I wanted things to be run. But in school and stuff where you just get kicked out and the teachers are wicked mean and everything's just it's just they don't give a fuck about you in like high school. I just couldn't get that out. So I either had to just clench up and wait, or I would end up getting kicked out of class. I used to get kicked out of class for arguing with my teachers almost on a daily basis. It was literally insane how often I got kicked out of class for arguing with my teachers. So, like, you guys might think the way I act on stream is all an act, and it's just me trying to make content out of nothing and just getting angry and ranting and caring about stuff that doesn't need to be cared about that much. But in reality, it's so much more than that. So let's go to the next one. Making sounds, humming, singing, and narrating. This isn't too big of a problem for me. This falls into the fidgeting category, and I've always found this way too destructive. Like, I cannot stand when people are making a lot of noise just randomly. Like, when I'm at the lunch table or something and everybody's just making noise around me, sometimes that can cause anxiety for me, where I'm just like, Jesus Christ, what the fuck is going on? I can't even hear my own thoughts because there's so much sound happening. But yeah, that doesn't affect me too much because I don't like annoying people with my ADHD outside of you guys with my stream. All right. Inability to enjoy sights or views for long and wanting to move on. So this is the initial one that piqued my interest because this is something brand new I just learned about myself in terms of ADHD possibly contributing to it. I've always been the type of person that doesn't give a damn about seeing sights. I don't give a fuck about the beautiful sunset or the fancy view of the skyline or looking outside of a plane and seeing the coast. Like, none of that has ever meant anything to me. I just want to get on to the next thing and keep it moving. The problem with that is I have missed so many opportunities to really be in the moment and experience something. Like my multiple trips to the Azores and Portugal, when I went and walked through the mountains and saw these beautiful landscapes, the experiences could have been way more profound for me if I let them be. But I was so wrapped up in just going and getting to the next thing and just trying to find comfortability. I was constantly chasing comfortability. So I could never sit there and just enjoy the sights around me, even if it was something super profound. So we already went over that. Having to constantly touch things like house facades. So this was a big issue when I used to walk everywhere. I mean, it wasn't that big of an issue, to be honest, but I was one of those kids, you probably know them, they would grab everything. So I would walk by a house, I would flick up the mailbox thing and flick it back down. I'd walk by and I'd grab a leaf off the tree. I'd keep walking, I'd tap the top of the mailbox or something. I'd keep walking, I'd grab something off the ground and flick it off the water to the right. I would just, constantly be doing something with the environment around me, and that would really piss people off. Not because it affects them in any way, but it's like, it's like when everybody's sitting down talking and you're up and walking around. It's like you're clearly just not relaxed and you're not on the same level as everybody else is in terms of chill. And that was always a problem in life, right? Because I'd never be able to chill. I was the same way and had similar experience in South Africa. It's kind of fundamentally changed the way I approach those moments. Yeah, it can be you know, a lot of these situations when something goes wrong because of one of your ADHD symptoms, those situations can feel so profound because in my opinion, this is just my aspect of it, but it feels like when you're going through this stuff that everybody should understand this. That's what it feels like. It feels like this is obvious that I'm going through. I don't even have to put it in words. Like, you guys should get it because you guys go through it too, right? But they don't. Like, not everybody has these issues. But that's the way it feels when you have them. You don't actually feel different. You just feel like everybody else is different and you're normal. Doodling or crafting things to be able to listen better. That never really been my thing. I used to draw on the side of papers and stuff and doodle here and there, but that's never been my huge go-to to deal with anything. I'm not a good drawer, so it just frustrates me to draw something and then look at it and I'm like, oh, this is not good. This is worse. I feel worse than I did before now that I remind myself how terrible I am at this. Maradona just died? Are you serious? Oh man, R.I.P. bro. At the age of 60, that's crazy. One of the greatest soccer players of all time, R.I.P. Maradona. Damn, my dad's gonna be crushed. He was one of his favorite soccer players. Because my dad is like pretty short, and Maradona was short, and he just like he kind of had that energy, that like short pit bull energy. Didn't want to stop for nobody. He would just go through a wall to score a goal. Just will his entire team to it. Damn. R.I.P. Maradona. That's terrible. Damn. Destructive habits like biting lips, scratching, or inflicting pain. This right here, I put in the same category as the tugging and the playing or chewing on hair and clothing. It's just like biting my nails or like biting the skin on my fingers. I've never done anything too much where I'm making myself bleed or scar up crazy. But it's like when my eyes get super puffy, it's because I can't stop rubbing it. It's like a self-control thing. I don't have much self-control as I would like to. I can't totally attribute that to ADHD, to be honest. But yeah, because I've shown to have self-control when I really, really want to work towards it. And a lot of times I just get lazy with my discipline. I always thought maybe I had ADHD, but never got tested like anything. Half this shit applies to me. Okay, like we said in the beginning, it's important to realize that even if all these things apply to you, it doesn't mean you do have ADHD. And if you do have ADHD, it doesn't mean it's like a problem or that things are going to be really different from you here on out. It's just important to understand that when you're going through something like this, it's important to understand what you're going through so you can either combat it or get through it to see the other side. I get acne in my legs or arms, can't stop myself from picking it sometimes, hyperfocus. Yeah, that's a problem. When people have acne and ADHD, that's when you run into the issues of like bad scarring and stuff because they just won't stop picking at it. Excessive talking, oversharing, not filtering out possibly rude things. All right, the final one. If there is anything that we have gone over that you may have not agreed with, this one you cannot tell me that you don't agree with, because this is me perfectly. I get on this stream every single day. I never shut the fuck up. I tell you guys things you did not ask to hear, and then I'm overly rude when I'm about to ban somebody. Pretty much explains my entire content right there in one box. So while this started out as a chart that explained a lot of why my personality is what it is, it ended up as one square defining my entire stream. But that's the talk I wanted to have, basically. Nothing too crazy. Just feel like I could expand on what I deal with ADHD a little bit more maybe people could learn a little bit from it, or make fun of me or something. I don't know. For all the people on YouTube, don't forget to subscribe, like, hit the share button, yada yada yada. Twitch Prime, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube. Peace.